Hey, it's Q&A day. I'm going to anticipate the first question you have, which is, you look a little bit different today, Brad. It's true, I'm wearing my new shirt. Thanks for noticing. The second question, and the reason you're probably here, is what do I think of the new Mac Pros? A little background. About 2 weeks ago, Apple had like a news roundtable with a couple of journalists that they trust, and they brought them in and they talked about the future of the Mac, specifically some of the higher end Macs, like the Mac Pro and the iMacs. And they wanted to talk to these folks about the professional market. Now, this is a market that Apple has gotten a lot of slack for over the last couple months, is kind of abandoning. Abandon is too strong of a word here, but they're not paying as much attention to kind of their high-end computers as they used to. So a lot of people have kind of looked at that and said, hey, Apple, what's going on? So that's what this roundtable was about, is bringing people together and talking about the future of the Mac. So here's a couple of the things that we learned during this roundtable interview. The first is that they did a little bit of a speed bump to the current Mac Pro, and that Mac Pro is currently 3.5 years old at this point and is still crazy expensive. They are working on a new Mac Pro as we speak, but it will not be ready this year. The round design of the current Mac Pro is designed to work with 2 chips. I think I got that right, but the industry went in a different direction, basically one big GPU. Okay, so where to start? I am an Apple fanboy. Well, not really, but I prefer Macs over PCs, but over the last several years, I have really warmed up to Windows. I've been using Windows a lot more. There are several reasons. The main one is that Windows went through a lot of growing pains over the last couple years. They integrated touch into the operating system, made it like a core foundation of using Windows 8. It took a long time to kind of iron out those kinks, but it has come out the other side with some really compelling products. Now, the second reason for me personally is I spend more and more time producing and creating videos. This is really processor intensive stuff, and so what I want in my next computer, probably a year or two down the road, is power. That is something I may not have cared about quite as much in the past. It's something that most users don't worry so much about with computers anymore, but it's something that I care about deeply and is something that I just can't get if you compare a Mac to a high-end PC. The high-end PCs are just so much more powerful right now than anything you can get as a Mac. So the main reason I would overspend on a Mac is to get Mac OS X running on a very powerful machine. A computer that looks cool on my desktop, that for me is not really a factor. A computer that runs using less power, again, for me, that's not so much of a factor. A computer that has like less fan noise and runs quieter, again, not high on my list of things that I want. I want the power, and I think the current Mac Pro is designed to do those other things. And it probably was powerful when it came out 3.5 years ago, but now I don't want to be paying a premium for older tech. If other companies made Macs, this would be completely irrelevant because I could just go to somebody else, buy a different computer, run OS X, but I can't. I don't really want to go down the road of like making a Hackintosh and trying to cobble something together because one, it's a pain in the butt. I just want my stuff to work, something that Apple has always really done well. And you know, one hardware update from Apple and it can screw up one of your drivers or a lot of your drivers. That's just a hassle I don't need. So as far as options go on a new computer, like if I was buying right now, Windows would be the way that I'd go. This is starting to sound like a rant. I'm not really a ranter, but let's give it a shot. What the heck, Apple? I mean, come on! I learned all my ranting skills from a small Christian school in the Midwest. So what we learned in these roundtable interviews with Apple was that over time, they started to realize that just updating the current Mac Pro just wasn't going to work out, that it was a mistake to design it the way they designed it. So these interviews actually left me with a couple of questions. The first question is when did you really realize that this wasn't going to work out? Was it when you went to update it a couple years ago? You know, when did you kind of have to say, okay, we're going for broke, we're just going to go for a full-blown redesign? My hunch is that they realized they had to do something this fall, last fall, fall of 2016, and it was probably at the same time that the Surface Studio was announced, because if you'll recall, I think the Surface Studio was announced within a week or maybe even the same week as the new MacBook Pros, and when the MacBook Pros came out, we all looked at them and thought, okay, all right, but when the new Surface Studio came out, designers and illustrators, we were really drooling over that thing. It was this big, beautiful screen. You could draw on it with a pen. It was just really cool and innovative. And if you're Apple, that had to hurt. I mean, that has to hurt your pride, knowing that for years, you were the people who who everybody thought, oh, this is the cool hardware, this is the stuff we're going to drool over, and all of a sudden, Microsoft is the one everybody is talking about. That hurts. That had to have stung. So I'm guessing that it was probably around that time when they said, okay, let's revisit the pro market. Let's take a look at this. Let's not lose our edge here. So that brings me to question 2. Why can't it be ready this year? So let's say it was this fall that you said, okay, let's redesign this thing, and you start that process. I understand, probably better than a lot of people, that it actually takes a long time to design and develop a product. Those development cycles tend to be a lot longer than the average consumer really gets. However, I will say this, that Apple has a tendency to really overthink things. I think that's what happened with the old Mac Pro, is they wanted to make it cool and stylish, and they forgot about what a PC does well, what a modular computer is really good for. And what worries me about this idea of if it's not ready this year, it's going to be ready next year, that means you've got a 2-year development cycle on the next Mac Pro, which tells me that they're probably overthinking that as well. Now, a couple years ago when they said, hey, let's waterproof the iPhone, you know, that to me says, wow, there's a lot that has to change here. You know, you need new materials. You need to rethink of where the elements are placed within the case. You need to think about how the case is sealed. Maybe you have to redesign some of the elements like the speakers or something like that to take advantage of that, right? There's a ripple effect that happens where you have to start redesigning other elements of it in order to take advantage of that. So that I can kind of understand is taking longer. But a computer's a computer, and it shouldn't take 2 years to redesign a computer with modular components. Just design a nice case. We don't need you to go through a whole bunch of steps to figure out a new way to recolor aluminum. And while we're at it, take Johnny Ive completely off the project. Put Wayne Hammershine in charge of it. Now I know what you're thinking. Who's Wayne Hammershine? Well, tell you what, you haven't hired him yet. He works at the Micro Center, like near my house. Really sharp guy, really nice, shows up to work every day on time, builds some nice PCs. I'm gonna leave his contact information down in the description below. Call him. What we want is a powerful computer. And while you're at it, let us upgrade the dang thing. All we need is a really nice computer that runs OS X. That's it. So I haven't made up my mind about what my next computer is going to be. It's possible that Apple will reinvent the wheel and I'll say, wow, this is amazing. They've come up with a bunch of things I haven't thought of before. I'm skeptical. I think probably what's going to happen is my next computers will be a Windows computer. But overall, Apple needs to ask one question, which is, what job does this computer do? If I was hiring an employee and this computer was my employee, I would say, what job is that employee going to do? And then I would focus on that, do that job incredibly well. Then worry about how it looks. Then worry about how loud the fan is. Then worry about power consumption. All of that should be secondary. Whew, so that felt good to get off my chest. That's all I've got for this week. If you have any comments or questions about this video or anything you want me to answer in a future video, you know, you can let me know down below in the comments, or you can always let me know over on Twitter. I'd like to thank the people who support this channel on Patreon and the people who click my Amazon links and have purchased my tutorials. I really appreciate it. That really helps this channel stay afloat. That's all I've got for this week. Thank you guys. I'll see you later.